Many will be familiar with how the Guardian divided the ages of the faith into consecutive epochs. The fifth epoch of the formative age began in 2001. Less well known is that the Guardian also made specific reference to there being epochs of the divine plan and stages within those epochs. Held in abeyance for 2 decades while local and national organs of the administrative order were being raised up and strengthened, the divine plan conceived by Abdu'l-Baha was formally inaugurated in 1937 with the commencement of the first stage of its first epoch, the 7-year plan assigned by the Guardian to the North American Baha'i community. This first epoch closed after the conclusion of the 10-year crusade in 1963, which had resulted in the banner of the faith being planted across the world. The opening stage of the second epoch was the first 9-year plan, and no less than 10 plans have followed in its wake. Plans that have ranged in duration from 12 months to 7 years. At the dawn of the second epoch, the Baha'i world was already witnessing the earliest beginnings of that entry into the faith by troops that had been foreseen by the author of the divine plan. In the succeeding decades, generations of devoted believers within the community of the greatest name have labored in the divine vineyard to cultivate the conditions required for sustained large-scale growth. And at this glorious season of Ridvan, how abundant are the fruits of those labors. The phenomenon of sizable numbers swelling the activities of the community, catching the spark of faith, and swiftly arising to serve at the leading edge of the plan has moved from being a forecast sustained by faith to a recurring reality. Such a pronounced and demonstrable advance demands to be marked in the annals of the cause. With elated hearts, we announce that the third epoch of the Master's divine plan has begun. Stage by stage, epoch after epoch shall his plan unfold, until the light of the kingdom illumines every heart. Beloved friends, no review of the 5-year enterprise that concluded the second epoch of the divine plan would be complete without special reference to the upheavals that accompanied its final year and which persist still. The restrictions on personal interaction that waxed and waned in most countries over this period could have dealt the community's collective efforts a severe blow, recovery from which might have taken years. But there are 2 reasons why this was not the case. One was the widespread consciousness of the duty of Baha'is to serve humanity, never more so than in times of peril and adversity. The other was the extraordinary rise in capacity in the Baha'i world to give expression to that consciousness. Accustomed over many years to adopting patterns of systematic action, the Friends brought their creativity and sense of purpose to bear on an unforeseen crisis, while ensuring that the new approaches they developed were coherent with the framework they had labored in successive plans to perfect. This is not to overlook the serious hardships being endured by Baha'is, like their compatriots in every land. Yet, throughout severe difficulties, the believers have remained focused. Resources have been channeled to communities in need, elections went ahead wherever possible, and in all circumstances, the institutions of the cause have continued to discharge their duties. There have even been bold steps forward. The National Spiritual Assembly of Sao Tome and Principe will be re-established this Ridvan, and 2 new pillars of the Universal House of Justice will be raised up. The National Spiritual Assembly of Croatia, with its seat in Zagreb, and the National Spiritual Assembly of Timor-Leste, with its seat in Dili. And so, the 1-year plan begins. Its purpose and requirements have already been set out in our message sent on the Day of the Covenant. This plan, though brief, will suffice to prepare the Baha'i world for the 9-year plan that is to follow. A period of special potency, which opened 100 years after the revelation of the tablets of the divine plan, will soon close with the centenary of the ascension of Abdu'l-Baha, marking the conclusion of the first century of the formative age and the start of the second. The company of the faithful enter this new plan at a time when humanity, chastened by the exposure of its vulnerability, seems more conscious of the need for collaboration to address global challenges. And yet, lingering habits of contest, self-interest, prejudice, and closed-mindedness continue to hinder the movement towards unity, despite growing numbers in society who are showing in words and deeds how they, too, yearn for greater acceptance of humanity's inherent oneness. We pray that the family of nations may succeed in putting aside its differences in the interests of the common good. Notwithstanding the uncertainties that shroud the months ahead, we entreat Baha'u'llah to make the confirmations that have sustained his followers for so long more abundant still, that you may be carried forward in your mission, your composure undisturbed by the turbulence of a world whose need for his healing message is ever more acute. The divine plan enters a new epoch and a new stage. The page is turned. Signed, the Universal House of Justice.